In this video, I will show you some of the new and improved features in Harlequin Multi-Rip version 11. First, let me give you an overview of how the rip works. To understand the basic operation of the rip, you can break it down into three separate sections: input, rip, and output. In Harlequin Multi-Rip, the section of the rip that controls job input is called Input Controller. This is where you access settings for how jobs are brought into the rip. Next, the actual raster image processor, or RIP for short, is controlled by the Page Setup Manager. This is where we make selections for how jobs are ripped. Finally, the output controller of the rip is where we can preview and control the outputting of jobs. This is Harlequin Multi-Rip version 11.05. There are two main windows for the rip: the toolbar with the rip log and the output controller. The toolbar provides easy access to configuration areas in the rip. The rip log shows recent activity about what jobs have been ripped, what setups were used to rip the job, time it took to print the job, etc. And the output controller allows you to easily monitor rip jobs, preview jobs, and control output. Next, we will show you one of the main configuration areas of the rip, the Page Setup Manager. Page Setup Manager is where we select what device we will be printing to, as well as selections like resolution, orientation, etc. We can control settings for screening, such as dot shape and screen ruling. In Calibration Manager, we can do things like linearize a plate setter or profile a printing press. We can make selections for TrapPro and create simple imposition layouts too. In the page setup, we can also choose to use Harlequin VariData if needed for digital printing. Once you have made all your desired selections, they can be saved as a unique page setup which can be recalled for frequent use. Let's have a closer look. To access the Page Setup Manager, click on this icon. We'll make a new page setup so you can see how you make selections within the page setup. First thing we'll do is select our output device. We'll use TIFF. We can set our resolution in here. Next thing we can do is make selections for screening. So we'll go in here, edit our separation style, and this is where we can set the screen ruling, and we can also set the dot shape. Euclidean would be a typical choice for offset printing. We'll go with those selections. Next thing we can do is, if we have the TrapPro option enabled, we can choose a trapping set. We'll choose a 3mm trap. And we can also apply any linearization that we may have for our output device. I've got a couple of setups for offset printing plates already set up in here. The next thing we can do in calibration is tell it what the intended press profile we want to use. So we want to emulate the swap TR1 standard. And then we can make a selection for any press profile that we may have already made. I've got one here for a Komori. And then we can also, if we want, choose an imposition layout. I've got a single sheet set up for that Komori. And then after reviewing all of these selections, we can also choose negative or positive, mirror print, etc. Then we can go ahead and save that page setup, and we'll call this one Komori 2400, 150, single sheet. Save that, and now that page setup is ready for use. Basically, there are three ways to get jobs into the RIP. The first one is very easy. This icon here will take you to Print File. Once in Print File, you'll select your page setup, and then select the file you want to print. Click Print. Simple as that. Another way to get work into the RIP is to use hot folders. In version 11, we have a new utility called Auto Hot Folder that automatically creates hot folders for each of the page setups that we have. So when we run Auto Hot Folder, it'll make a folder for each of the names of these and create an input channel for that. Let's try it. Simple as that, it's done. We need to restart the RIP for that to take effect. And let's see the result. Now we have a hot folder input channel for each page setup. And what it's done is created a hot folder in here that you can drop files into. And for example, if I drop a file into GTO-CMYK, the RIP will pick up the file and apply it to the page setup GTO-CMYK. Let's give it a try. So we'll open up that hot folder. I'll make a copy of this file, drop it in there. And another convenient thing that Auto Hot Folder does is it creates a file that you can use to find out what the path is for each of those hot folders, and it also gives you the computer name so that you can take this file and set up computers on your network to drop files into those hot folders. Another convenient way to get work into the RIP is to add a network printer. And that is done through the RIP's input controller. We can add an individual network printer for each page setup. I've added one here for the Komori Trap page setup. And what that does is it allows you to create a printer on the PC that can be shared out on the network. Once it's been shared out on the network, any computer on the network, including Macs and PCs, are able to print to it. And the jobs will come straight into the RIP, be applied to the page setup that's been selected, and right into the output controller. Another new feature in version 11 is a new TIFF output plugin. And to show you how that works, what we're going to do is rip this 2-page 4-color job. We can view it if we like. There it is. Okay, we're ready for output. Once we release that job, it's going to send the TIFF files into this TIFF output folder that I've created. But instead of putting 8 individual TIFF files into that folder, CMYK for page 1, CMYK for page 2, what it's going to do is create a folder using the job name. And then within that folder will be all of the individual 1-bit TIFF files for the plate setter. A very popular option that we offer with Harlequin Multi-Rip 11 is TrapPro. And to show you that, what we'll do is we'll go into a page setup that I've already made that includes a trapping setup. GTO CMYK trap, we'll edit that, and you can see that I've got trapping method selected as TrapPro, and I've selected a 3mm trap setup that I already have. We'll go into that setup so you can see what the configuration is. In here, we can specify the trap width. I've currently got it set to 3mm. And we also have image-to-image trapping set to automatic. And another thing that's convenient is I've selected to preview in our ROM the trap areas highlighted in green. So that'll make it a lot easier for us to see after we've ripped it. So let's put it to use and see what it looks like. So what we'll do, I've got this trapping example job. Looks like that. We'll go ahead and rip that and view it. You can see what it looks like. So here it is. We'll select that job. Control-click to preview. And now, if we zoom in on the areas, we'll be able to see where the traps are. That green line right there is showing you there's a trap between this spot color orange vignette and that CMYK oval. There should be a trap along this line here, but we can't see it because the black is solid. So what we can do to make that a little easier to see, we'll go back and I'll show you something else that we have. We can change the ROM color for black from solid black to translucent black. And you'll see the effect of that in just a minute. So we'll select the job again, Control-click to preview, and now let's zoom in on it. See, the black is now translucent. And have a look. Now we can see there is a trap in there. We can see the black has overprinted on the cyan, and we can see the trap in this area as well. Another option to show you is Simple Imposition. To access the Simple Imposition Manager, you can click on this icon on the toolbar, or you can also access it from within a page setup. So let's take this GTO CMYK page setup, for example, and we'll add an imposition layout to that. I already have one selected here for the GTO press, a 2/2 style for this type of work. What I've got here is a PDF with very simple, just a 2-page letter size. And what we're going to do is get that laid out on our 2-up press stepped 2/2. So we'll go into the Imposition Manager, and to show you how that's laid out, we'll select the imposition setup, click on Edit, and in the first page of the 2 windows that are used to configure Simple Imposition, what you'll find is the first part is where you select the type of imposition you're going to do. And what we've got here is step and repeat 2-sided. So we also have a number of other styles to choose from, but we'll go with that. So the next thing is, I'm going to switch this to inches. We've got a sheet size of 14 by 18, which is appropriate for that GTO press we're going to be driving. And here is where we've specified the number of repetitions across the page. So we're going to do 2 across. And then I've given it a 0.1 inch gap between each page. Front options is where we select how we're going to place the imposed work on the sheet. And we can either center vertically or horizontally, and we can also pull it to the left or right, top or bottom. And we can also put in a specified gripper amount if we want to. In addition to that, we can also add crop marks and registration marks, both of which I've applied to this setup. So let's go ahead and apply that to this page setup and run that job and see what it looks like. So we're going to go to Print File, select our GTO CMYK page setup, which now has the 2/2 imposition style, and we'll take our 2-page 4-color letter size job and print that. It rips the job, and the first thing you'll notice, if we double click on the job to get some information about it, it has used the sheet size that we specified in Simple Imposition. And now what we can do is select the page, Control click to roam, preview, and we'll see that it in fact has laid it out 2 across, registration marks, and a little hard to see, but there's the cut marks. Okay, let's take a look at the back side. Click, select page, Control click to roam. There's the back side. In my next example, I'm going to use 2 features, ColorPro and Harlequin VariData. So what we're going to do, the Harlequin VariData is especially important for running digital work. So I've got a setup here for a small digital press, and the first thing I'll show you is ColorPro. In ColorPro, I've got a setup here called Grackle CGAT 6, and here's the ColorPro window. So what we have on this side is the input profile and settings on how we'll deal with the file input, and then on the right hand side, this has to do with how we're going to output the file. So in this case, the rendering intents, we're using a default absolute colorimetric and default perceptual for images. Important thing here is I've set it to override any color management in the job and use the selections that I've made here. So we'll go ahead and select that for our press. And then for variable data, right here we have Harlequin VariData. And our selections for that can be automatic, always, and never. We're going to set it to automatic. And what that will do, let me show you an example job. Here, I've got a 1500 page variable data job with different addresses, but the same graphical content, a logo and an image. So when we use variable data, Harlequin VariData, what the RIP will do first when the job comes in is it'll look to see if in fact it's a variable data job. If it is, then it'll go into variable data mode, and what that will do is allow the RIP to rip the images that are used on every page, cache them to the disk. That way they don't have to be re-ripped for each individual successive page. This makes a drastic improvement in the performance. Let's rip the job and have a look and see what that does. So we'll go to Print File, select our small digital press, select that 1500 page envelope job, and click Print. And look at how fast it's going.